What the hell happened to this scene on Switch? Well, we'll talk about that and a lot more as we explore the upgrades and downgrades of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD based on the recent overview trailer. And luckily, it's not all bad news, especially as we have a promising update on the ongoing Fur Saga. And we'll talk more about that as well as the multiple water issues later in the video. But for now, we're gonna go through the trailer scene by scene, pointing out every change we noticed. Anyways, I want to start off with what I think is a positive change, as the little icons found in the stonework here have been recolored, now looking bright orange instead of gray. At the least, it certainly adds some color diversity. Even though the lighting has been vastly improved on Switch, in many cases drawing out details that were easy to overlook on Wii, there are some odd consistencies as a result, like this oddly darkened stalagmite in the background that used to be entirely visible on Wii. Similarly, the dark rocks in the background here used to be much more visible. Speaking of lighting, so where'd the sun go in this sunset? It used to be prominently placed behind the trees. And we can see the exact same issue in this scene as well. And this one too, which confirms this isn't an isolated incident. What's up with Nintendo screwing up sunsets recently? Also, there's another missing effect in this scene. Do you see that glow that appears when blasting out of a barrel in the Wii version? Yeah, it's entirely gone on Switch. Which is weird because we have seen that in previous trailers. So let's just hope it's a weird quirk with the build they used for this trailer that'll hopefully be addressed in the final version of the game. Now luckily, the sun can still be found in this silhouette stage, and it still looks great. But that doesn't mean there aren't some changes here. For one, not only is the water entirely different as it is in the rest of the game, which we'll be talking more about soon, but how it appears on the horizon is also entirely different, with it either extending farther into the distance or being raised up entirely. In either case, the effect is that the water level appears to be higher than it used to be. On the Wii, the water clearly comes short of reaching the top of this island, whereas on the Switch, it's practically at the top. Now, I don't know whether this is better or worse, but it definitely is different. Furthermore, when DK opens the way, it feels less impactful on Switch due to the reduced smoke and debris effects. Whereas on Wii, it feels a lot murkier, as you would expect. And this is partly due to one very weird reason. Just watch the falling rocks carefully on Switch. Yeah, they start disappearing before they even hit the ground. That didn't happen at all on the Wii. Similarly, when DK opens the way in this scene, there's a lot less debris than there was on the Wii. Okay, starting with the Wii version here, watch the explosion when the barrel hits the chicken. Looks pretty impactful, right? Now let's watch it again on Switch. It feels a lot weaker, doesn't it? As it turns out, the orange explosion effect has been reduced, and there's a lot less smoke too. Speaking of hot things, I almost don't even know where to start with this clip, because for multiple reasons, the overall intensity seems to be toned down on Switch. This is most notable with the lava itself, which used to glow a bright orange on Wii, but now appears much more muted on Switch. Just look at that contrast. Oh, and the lava is also missing those little fire animations that can be found on the Wii. And then there's the fact that these lava rocks don't look quite right for any number of reasons, even beyond the more muted glow that they share with the rest of the lava. For one, the trail of fire that follows them looks a lot skimpier. On Wii, it seemed to conform more to the shape of the actual rock, whereas on Switch, it looks like more of a handful of sparks. Similarly, the white glow that trails behind it looks off too. On Wii, it truly gives the impression of heat radiating directly off of it, whereas on Switch, it almost looks like a bad motion blur effect, with how the full impression of the rock just kinda lingers there. Then, the splash they make doesn't seem to blend in with the rest of the lava nearly as well as it did on the Wii, and it's even more apparent now that it's just an animation layered on top. But it's hard to pinpoint exactly why this is. It might be an issue with the transparency, or maybe the fact that the ripples may not be properly reflecting the lighting here. In any case, that's not the only blending issue here either. Do you see that orange glow that surrounds the platforms that protrude from the lava? Well, if we compare it to the Wii version, we can see just how flat it appears on Switch as it lost the radiant glow, and how it doesn't mesh with the surroundings at all. Like, that can't be finished, right? But on the upside, the shimmer effect caused by the intense heat appears to still be intact. We can see a similar issue with the ripples in the mud here that surround the central platforms, as they appear to be notably smaller and less animated on Switch as compared to the Wii version where they're much more obvious. Why does the HD version hate ripples? And that's not the only problem here, because when the mud bubbles pop on Switch, nothing happens, they just disappear. Whereas on Wii, mud erupts from those bubbles. The cone of light that emanates from the hanging lamps here doesn't extend nearly as far on Switch as compared to the Wii version. As a result, it's less prominent but also possibly more natural looking. Now here's an interesting change. Do you see that metal bracket there? It actually used to be on the underside of the track in this section in the Wii version. Now, I'm no railway expert, but I have to say that the Switch version feels more correct, and now I'm wondering if it was possibly a mistake back in the Wii version, especially as it only appeared beneath the track a handful of times in this level. Look, I could be off base here, but this might be an instance of the Switch version actually fixing something. And here's another odd difference. When the train crashes on the Wii, the platform that was suspended from it falls at an angle, whereas on Switch, it falls at about the same angle that was attached at. Weird. Now for this scene, on the Wii we could find a skeleton in the background, but on the Switch it appears to be missing, though it is possible it was just relocated. Now there is another change here that's a little bit more interesting, because on Switch, if you look at the fish fossil on the wall, it seems to have an eye now, and it follows you, whereas that socket was completely empty on Wii. So it's a pretty neat, if also a little creepy addition for the HD version. But I don't know if it was fully intended, as it might just be the accidental result of the wall's geometry showing through now. Whatever the case may be, it creates an effect similar to this real-life illusion where if you set the eyes on a layer behind the rest of the face, it appears as if the eyes are following you. So even if this is an accident, it's a happy one. Well, a happy, creepy one. Now the fog in this scene is much more pronounced on Switch than it is on the Wii, and it kind of obscures a lot of the background detail. But on the opposite end of the spectrum is this factory scene, which used to be a lot murkier on Wii, to the point that you couldn't even see through the window here, which on Switch, you actually can see through it now. Huh, who knew there was an entire mountain range hanging out back there? Thanks to the new lighting, the Golden Temple is looking especially golden these days. And I have to say, I like it. Then, in this beach scene, it seems like they filled out the wooden structure to obscure the sand, which I think looks better now. Here's some more good news. Do you remember that really ugly cannon smoke effect I pointed out way back in the first trailer? And how it refused to fade away? Well, it's been completely fixed now, as it now properly dissipates shortly after the shot, just as it did on the Wii. In fact, this entire scene's looking quite different these days compared to the reveal trailer, with revised lighting, a darker, stormier appearance, and updated water too as it now features waves. Plus, the water breaking at the bow of the ship now looks much better too, all of which brings it more in line with the original Wii version. Unfortunately, despite the improvements, the water still isn't quite right, and not just here, but throughout multiple scenes of the trailer. And the biggest issue that remains is just how flat the water appears now, with no real variance in the lighting, unlike on Wii where the water had clear highlights from the sun. Here it is again side by side. You might have also noticed that although there are waves now, they're oddly prominent compared to the Wii. As in, they don't blend with the water nearly as well as before, in my opinion at least, and it doesn't look nearly as natural. And we can see this everywhere where there are waves. And as I've pointed out before, the islands on Switch are missing the effect of having lighter water surrounding them. Perhaps no scene showcases all these differences better than this one, as the Wii version just looks more luscious by comparison. And what's going on with the wave there on Switch? That looks even worse than the ones I've already pointed out. Here's how it's supposed to look. Okay, now despite some of these water issues, it's not all bad news. For one, the water is still looking better than the reveal trailer, so things are improving. Second, compared to the water effects on the 3DS, such as in this 3DS exclusive stage, well, I'd say the Switch version's a clear improvement, as the water looked way flatter on the 3DS. Here's another 3DS comparison where the water looks more natural on Switch. And as I've said before, the water may look even better on Switch compared to the Wii when it comes to indoor or darker scenes, thanks to the reflective highlights that can be found on Switch. Especially in the caves where the water appears to actually reflect the environment now on Switch. And speaking of water, the octopus appears to have received a big upgrade since the original reveal trailer too. Not only is he better lit for the environment now, but the specular highlights that were missing then are back. And not only that, but it's looking even better than on the Wii. And we also get another look at the improved bat projectiles compared to the first trailer, which I covered before, but they're still not quite on the same level as the original Wii version. Woo, okay, after all of that, it's time to finally talk about that hairy situation. Literally. Now in case you missed the ongoing saga, here's a quick recap. The original reveal trailer for the game featured a much hairier Donkey Kong, at least in this scene, or most notably in this scene. Just look at how much furrier his arm is on Switch compared to the original Wii version, in which there weren't really any fur effects. But then a strange thing happened. We got some more gameplay of the game which showed that same scene, only this time the new fur effects are completely gone, bringing it more in line with the Wii version, but not in a good way. And although it was hard to tell for sure, it seemed as if this may have applied to all the gameplay too. But we have some good news based on the latest trailer. Now even though we don't see the scene of DK punching the Tiki unfortunately, we do get to see the moment right after featuring the actual in-game character models. and it looks like it might actually have some fur there, which becomes even more apparent when compared to the Wii version. Now, although it is hard to notice during actual gameplay, at least in the YouTube footage, a couple of close-up scenes give us other looks at it. So this is a really good sign that enhanced fur effects are indeed still in the game, even if they still look a bit different than they did in the reveal trailer. Either way, I do have to comment that the fur effects are nowhere near as pronounced as in the game's sequel, Tropical Freeze. God, the game was so good. In any case, there you have it everyone, a barrel full of new differences, changes, and upgrades and downgrades in Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. So what do you make of the game at this point? Are you happy with where it's at? Are you still hoping for a little bit more? And how relieved are you that there are indeed some fur enhancements? Unless things change again, of course. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And with that, thank you for watching, and make sure to click the subscribe button and ring that bell for tons more on Donkey Kong Country Returns HD and everything else, well, Donkey Kong here as well. We'll catch you later. Bye everyone.